This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police boost, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya, from the Fort Hall School of Government. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning. But we also take a look at some of the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 2nd of November, 2022. And I'm 2M.
I am DK.
And I am 2J. And in case you missed today's headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, 50 days of Ruto regime. The Standard, Kinoti left exposed in shake-up. The Star, EACC probes 18 billion shilling UHURU energy deal. And in the People Daily, CBC, Kenyans speak. All right, so we are officially 50 days into the Ruto regime. DK,
Yeah.
what are you going to tell us?
So on Monday, 2M suggested that President Ruto may become a one-term president.
Me?
Yes. And today I want to disagree with him. I think that Ruto will be president until 2032 or beyond. And by proxy, he may become president forever. I deviate from 2M's submission where he compares Ruto and Donald Trump and also Bolsonaro of Brazil. If the two failed to be re-elected because they failed to expand their political fan base, Ruto, I suggest, will not fail on those grounds. How can he fail on those grounds? We have already identified President Ruto as a man who has won every battle he has engaged in. He is made for battle and he will move heaven and earth to make sure he wins. So, if the political basis of Trump and Bolsonaro made them one-term presidents, William Ruto cannot make the same damn mistake.
Yep.
I can confirm to you that Ruto is more than aware that his Kikuyu base will not blindly follow him forever. He knows he must stay relevant if he wants their votes in 2027. So in that case, Ruto has three options.
Yep.
Option 1, he will deliver. Option 2, he will not deliver, but instead offer them an alternative. And option 3, he could replace Kikuyu base for another one. Let's look at these three options. 1, Ruto can deliver on the Hustler Fund and keep Kikuyus happy. In my opinion, this is a low-hanging fruit. Money, especially for Kikuyus, can be found and a program can be implemented and Kikuyus will be made to feel included and loved by Ruto. Ruto is a grade A politician, so that you remember, he thinks out of the box. He sees opportunities where there are none and is energized by the crowds. It will not take him long to come up with a genius idea that might break a few laws, step on people's toes, but bottom line, he will keep his base happy. If the rains continue to cooperate like they are doing, he will load GMO seeds and voila, he will be re-elected in 2027. 2, the option that Ruto will not be able to deliver and will offer an alternative is a real possibility. Let's face it, has anyone yet succeeded on changing the fortunes of the poor? Has someone cracked the formula for dealing with poverty? As far as I'm aware, this is still a mystery. The probability that William Ruto will crack this one is also low. He knows that, and we also know that. And it is only a matter of time before the hustler nation finds out the bitter truth. There's one alternative that Ruto can sell to his base, and that alternative is called hope. Hope can be served in many ways, and Ruto simply has to find the right chef. How many of us grew up with the occasional night when our mothers had no food for the family? What did she do? She found bitter roots and put them on the fire to cook the whole night. The preparation would take so long that the children would one by one fall asleep as they waited for the food to cook. In hope, they slept. The next morning, they would be sent off to school to try their luck again. Ruto is the master of illusion, and his charm will keep the masses ever hopeful but never satisfied. This is the stuff of political games and intrigues. Number 3, Ruto's third option for re-election is to switch up his base. We know that political alliances are temporary, and Ruto is free to make alliances with the Luyas, with the Kambas, and even the Luos.
Absolutely.
2027 is still a long way off, and on that note, we abandon the analysis of the 2027 election on the grounds that we are yet to recover from the intrigues of the 2022 election.
True.
And this brings me to my concluding point. Kenyans generally do not turn up, or rather did not turn up for the 2022 elections. Those who did turn up still have questions about how the elections were conducted, and those who had stakes in the tally had issues with how the results were transmitted. And then there was something smelly about the Supreme Court ruling, hot air and et al. But it is not fashionable to have this conversation now. So for the sake of country, we'll just trust that systems work and sit in for hope.
Okay.
We'll sit hoping that issues will cook. So therefore, people, let's stay awake.
You know, DK, I may have to remind you, about 2 weeks ago, I wrote in the Standard, and I compared Ruto to Putin. And I asked if he would do a Putin and lead us until 2062. So you may not have agreed with me on my Monday hypothesis, but you will have to agree with me on my Putin hypothesis.
We'll wait to see. So yesterday, I made a distinction between Ruto the candidate and Ruto the president. The point was to ask whether the president's addiction to campaign mode was stopping him from doing his job. My answer was a resounding yes. So long as Ruto campaigns more than he governs, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. The kind of trouble, maybe as 2M suggests, or DK disagrees with, the kind of trouble that might find him in State House for only 1 term. Maybe. My solution was for him to seek refuge in political rehab. We are tired of hearing that UDA won. Now it's time for them to work.
Yes.
But now, I want to measure myself. My invitation for President Ruto to attend political rehab was in the name of balance. Because as a political animal, he must wear his pragmatic presidential hat one day and his charming candidate hat the next.
Bang.
This is the charm offensive.
Yes.
But you cannot, in the span of 7 days, tell the public that they will pay taxes from the age of 18, propose to kill the Mitumba industry, propose legislation to increase MP salaries, and have DCI and DPP eroding public confidence, all in the midst of an economic joint town. Surely, as a God-fearing country, we deserve better than this. William Ruto and his government must avoid telling us the ugly truth all the time.
Yes.
Unless they are prepared to face the anger that comes with that ugly truth.
Yes.
Instead, they should conjure up a fantasy and add hope or money to people's lives.
Yes.
In this way, country will rally behind them. But how can this be done? In our view, we see 2 pathways. 1, the Ruto administration can continue to place blame on Uhuru Kenyatta. After all, he's an easy target for the failure of Kenya Kwanza promises. But this will only set in the reality of country's bad position. The other option borrows from Law 32 of the 48 laws of power. A good leader must play to people's fantasies. This is an easier approach. And this is how Ruto can use his candidate persona to his own advantage.
Oh, absolutely.
So a little story. In the late 1500s, Venice had fallen on difficult times after decades of plenty. A man by the name of Bragadino arrived claiming that he could make gold multiply by applying a secret substance. So the Venetians built him a palace and promised to fund his luxurious lifestyle if he would produce gold to restore the city to its former glory. But eventually, the citizens began to grow impatient. Bragadino responded that their impatience had caused them to lose his services. And so he left, and resumed his scam, and the same pattern repeated itself. What's the lesson of this very short law?
Yes.
Bragadino's fantasy was powerful because it came at the right moment, when Venice needed a break from its misfortune. Had Bragadino arrived in Venice armed with detailed analysis of the cause behind the city's economic decline and a long-term solution, he would have been ignored, maybe even laughed at.
Oh, yes.
The reality was too ugly and the solution was too painful.
Beautiful.
But the fantasy of gold offered instant transformation, albeit false.
Yes.
To gain power, you must be a source of pleasure for those around you.
Oh, yes.
And pleasure comes from playing into people's fantasies.
Yes.
Mr. President, I think we are due for a fantasy.
Oh, yes.
But do not rely on this gimmick for too long. Give us some relief, but then go underground and fix country.
Yeah.
Then every once in a while, give us a reminder of Ruto the candidate, and I promise you'll get away with anything.
Absolutely beautiful.
I'm fighting myself from calling Bragadino Kipchirchir.
Oh my God.
Arab.
Arab Bragadino.
Senior Counsel James Orengo told Country last weekend that Raila could be president even before William Ruto completes his term. Question is how? How does Orengo envisage plucking Ruto from power? And why should the Luo nation believe that a Raila revolution is imminent? Now, according to Nikita Khrushchev, one of Russia's former presidents, it is easy to tell a slow-punctured revolutionary. Allow him to preach revolution and lies for the first day. Allow him to preach revolution and lies for the second day. Allow him to preach revolution and lies for the third day. If there are no results on the fourth day, the crowds will tell him, to hell with you. Raila has preached revolution to us 5 times, and in all of them, he has not delivered. Now, he is at the crucial moment of desperation. Question is, will the crowds tell him, to hell with you? Allow me to flip my argument and ask, does it have to be Raila preaching revolution this time round? Or will the crowds do it for him? Put differently, does Ruto think the crowds are capable of doing a revolution on him? Let me tell you another story. One day, Winston Churchill took a taxi for an interview at the BBC studios in London. When he arrived, he asked the taxi driver to wait for him for 40 minutes until he got back. But the driver politely declined and told him, I am sorry, sir, I cannot. I've got to go home and watch Churchill's speech. Churchill was amazed, not so much because the taxi guy did not recognize him, but because of the man's desire to listen to him. So he took out 10 sterling pounds from his pocket and gave the taxi man. The taxi man was shocked. 10 pounds then was more than a week's wages. Anyway, as Churchill stepped out of the vehicle, the taxi man said, Sir, I will wait for hours until you come back. Churchill can go to hell. It only took 10 pounds to buy a taxi man's loyalty. What's the point of my story? The crowds are like a pendulum. One moment they're with you, the next they're with someone else. 10 pounds for a taxi driver in London is a 2 kg pack of unga for Macharia in Gatundu. Put differently, if Raila gives a Macharia of Gatundu 2 kgs of unga when Macharia is dying of starvation, Macharia will say, to hero with a hasura. Or will he?
I like that story. And that's actually a good idea for the opposition, to take up that mantle.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, so on that note, we have a 3-part criteria that we use to judge the headlines by. We ask ourselves, is the headline topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, and finally thoughtful or just plain lazy? So 50 days of Ruto regime, Kinoti left exposed in shake-up, EACC probes 18 billion shilling UHURU energy deal, and CBC Kenyans speak.
I think people daily is just a rubbish headline.
Yeah, the context here, parents are talking, they're saying that CBC is too expensive.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see what Ruto's cabinet does with it, but I agree. Toss the people daily.
Yeah. The Star nonsense.
The 18 billion shilling energy deal. This
Energy deal.
is about the Turkana wind farm.
Yeah.
Maybe Ruto is taking our advice and he's blaming UHURU for everything. Again, we shall see. Does EACC have legs? Toss the Star.
Absolutely.
The Standard. Kinoti left exposed in shake-up.
I mean, we've been saying that for the whole week. It's nothing new.
Nothing new. Yeah,
Yeah.
the headline I'm waiting for is Haji left exposed in shake-up. Maybe that's a headline for next week.
That's the point, you know.
Toss the Standard.
Yes.
Daily Nation. 50 days of Ruto regime.
I like that. It means every Kenyan is watching.
Yep.
Every Kenyan is monitoring. And probably they'll stop counting days. They'll start counting hours.
Oh gosh.
But I find it lazy. It's so straight. It's just 50 days, and then even a kindergarten baby can count.
Well, you know what? This is a halfway point. Yeah, and as we've said, 100 days will be on the 12th of December, Jamhuri Day. So he's at his halfway point. What do we say of his halfway point? He has another 50 days to prove himself.
Absolutely.
Maybe they should have used halfway point.
Halfway
I
point.
agree with halfway point, not 50 days. But do I toss it? Do I keep it?
We keep it.
We keep it.
Yep. All right. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons, but we also have a three-part criteria. We ask ourselves, are the cartoons humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, and finally effective or just plain lazy? I would like to start with a cartoon that falls very squarely under plain lazy.
Yeah.
The Standard. I do not even know this is Gamzo. Okay, yeah, we don't expect much. Gamzo, we're not even going to describe the cartoon. Audience, we will show it to you briefly. And then now we toss it. Thank you. I think now we look very quickly. Let's look at the Daily Nation.
Daily Nation got a caricature of common Mwananchi there in a rolling machine. They've got a caricature of President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. They're stretching him to his elastic limit, milking as many coins, much money as they can.
From bottom to top.
From bottom, yeah. And the caption there is expanding the tax base, bottom up.
Oh my goodness.
Look, and this, we have questioned this approach to, I mean, the first 50 days of the regime.
Yeah.
You cannot, in my view, ask people to save while they're hungry and have got nothing to save in the first place. All right? And we've explained this before. Anytime country is heading to an economic contraction or recession, what you do is you do consumption. You do not do savings.
Yeah.
So you first ensure there's money in people's pockets, and then thereafter they can save. But if you're asking them to tax 6% to go to NSSF, goodness sake, I don't know how much of NHIF. I don't know how much.
Yeah. It's like 6% NSSF, 1.7% NHIF.
Yes.
30% pay as you earn.
Absolutely.
And then you add everything else. You're giving your tithe to church. You're paying for your VAT. It just
doesn't add up. I mean, and I do get the sense when William Ruto says there are 7 million Kenyans who under KRA and pay taxes, and there are 30 million Kenyans with M-Pesa accounts. That's fantastic logic. But I think it's the wrong context. If we were doing so well economically, then that argument, would
But
suffice.
I agree with you. I think I'm of two minds.
Yeah.
Either this is a brilliant plan he's coming up with, or he has no idea what he's doing. Because all of these things, when added, when compounded together, something doesn't add up.
I would not place the blame at his door. I would blame his advisors on this.
My take on this is on what they are getting out of the whole squeeze.
Guys,
they're getting coins.
I want to take you back to history. 2008. Who was governor of Central Bank?
Dongo.
Professor Jogona Dongo. He was declared best or worst governor of Africa. So what was he declared?
The worst.
He was declared the worst. It's a fact of history. David Day, if at all he's the one who's doing this, he did not live under good terms when he was under Kagame. I do not know why President William Ruto is
surrounding himself with
such bad advice, in my view. If at all they're the ones who've advised him.
Okay, now on the flip, we have the cartoon in the Star, which I think takes on the tax conversation from a whiter angle.
It's also a depiction of bottom-up kind of thing. They are kind of flipping a Muzungu, because the face here is not an African. This is a Muzungu.
Yeah.
In the Daily Nation, that was an African being
Yes,
a hustler. But now in this one, it's the same thing about taxation, talking about bottom up. But I'm thinking if we would invoke our third mind, this is talking about the Muzungus who owned ranches,
Yep.
who owned huge plantations, and people for the longest time, since colonial times, evaded taxation.
Yes.
To the point that they were paying 100 shillings per acre per year.
Yeah.
That
That's their
is-
that's their
Those are the
contribution.
people, yeah, those are the people we need to tax.
Yeah.
And when I see this, I see the Unilevers of this world, I see the Gold Crown of this world, I see the Finlays of this world, and I think if bottoms up was to bottom up these people, they're justified to do this. I like this cartoon because it shifts away from the hustler, because in the Daily Nation you see them milking coins. And this one, I see some notes. So it means there's something to get from these big firms who've been evading.
And also,
taxes.
just emotionally,
Yeah.
I feel sad when I look at it being the hustler who's being targeted. But when I see that it's this third, fourth, fifth generation unidentified Muzungu, I smile.
I also smile
This
with
makes
this
me
one.
happy.
I love this cartoon.
We're Pan-Africanists, are we not? Okay, so I think DK and I have decided what the winning cartoon
It
is.
is.
But do I say? All right, so we toss the Standard, we toss the Daily Nation, and we award our winning cartoon to the Star. Okay. So there you have it. We have a winning headline from the Daily Nation, a winning cartoon from the Star. I have no quote for you today, but happy 50th day being president, Mr. President. You can also find us on your TV screens. We're on Pang Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times. Have a lovely evening, and we will see you tomorrow.
2J, you forgot one thing.
What did I?
We have a new set of principal secretaries.
Thank you very
yeah.
much.
PSs.
Yes,
PSs.
important conversation that we left.
Absolutely. And there's some interesting observations there.
Wait, can I run through very quickly
Go ahead.
the tribal allocations? If we can do that.
Absolutely.
So there are 38 PSs that have been appointed, or nominated rather, 14 of which are Kalenjin, 10 are Kikuyu, 5 Somali, 4 Luya, 1 Luo, 2 Kamba, and 2 Masai. I feel like in any other place in the world, that would be such a strange statement or list to read out. But in Kenya, we know that tribalism is politics at the end of the day.
Give it to William Ruto. Presidency is yours. Jomo Kenyatta's government, we had Kikuyus leading civil service.
Yeah.
Under Moyes, we had Kalenjins leading civil service. Back to Kibaki, we had Kikuyus leading civil service. Uhuru Kenyatta, Kikuyus leading civil service.
So are you saying this is a Kalenjin government?
You have to trust
It
your
is.
own to run
14 out of the
government.
38, of course.
You've got to trust your own.
Can't blame the guy.
I picked interest in the appointment of other nomination of
That's
Nixon Korea.
That's exactly what I was going
That's
with
the
this.
one I like.
That's exactly what I was going, DK, with this.
Uh-huh.
But before I go to Dixon Korea, allow me to speak about a
Dixon.
man called Raymond Omolo, who is PS Interior.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I want to say this for the first time since 1986. PS Interior and President are from two different communities, all right? And also as well, what Raymond Omolo will be to William Ruto is what Hezekiah Oyugi was to
John.
Daniel Arap Moi. Now, back to PS Nixon Korea.
Nixon Korea.
I love that William Ruto is appointing young PSs. I mean, irrespective of...
That's what you love.
This is fantastic. I think, in my view, it's brilliant. You know, he's showing us our future, really. It is, and give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
And also to really a nondescript. What's the name of the CS lands? Sam Zachary, someone else. I don't know. A guy from nowhere. You know, I mean, if you dream of the hustler nation and you're inspired by it, this is what guys,
The proof is in the pudding.
Proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
Give it to him.
If you can make it, as hustler, you can make it anywhere.
And lastly, I want to congratulate those PSs that
Were retained. Yes.
And one of them is a good friend of ours here at the Photo School of Government, Charles Mora Hinga. Person we worked very closely with during the affordable housing scheme and the market program countrywide. Brilliant PS.
Yes,
and I think
indeed.
he was retained for his hard work and his charm. Man's a charmer. Congratulations, PS from
Yeah.
us.
Mr. Hinga.
Very true. All right, so I guess I will say goodbye again. Have a lovely evening, and we will see you same place tomorrow.